Have you ever imagined walking into a garden so breathtakingly beautiful that you thought it belonged in a painting, only to realize that every leaf, every flower, and every vine could also feed you? This is not fantasy, it is the philosophy of edible aesthetic farming, a radical way of rethinking how we design our spaces and how we live. Instead of choosing between beauty and practicality, this concept marries both. It says, why not create a garden that pleases the eyes, calms the soul, perfumes the air, and fills the table with food? In a world where food insecurity is rising, cities are getting denser, and people crave both health and beauty in their daily lives, edible aesthetic farming offers a future that is not only sustainable but enchanting. Imagine a balcony in London filled with vibrant flowers, but hidden among them are cherry tomatoes glistening like rubies and peppers glowing in shades of yellow, orange, and red. At first glance, it looks like a decorative arrangement designed by an artist, but with one step closer, you realize it is also a pantry. Now picture a rooftop in Toronto where lavender and mint line the borders, releasing calming aromas, while in between them grow rows of lettuce, kale, and strawberries. Or think of a quiet apartment in Stockholm where an indoor wall garden is covered in cascading ivy for beauty, but in the same living wall, basil, parsley, and rosemary thrive. This is not just gardening. It is a lifestyle shift, a philosophical change that turns the line between ornament and utility into a seamless blend. But where did this idea come from? Traditionally, people separated ornamental plants and edible plants. Gardens for beauty were filled with roses, lilies, and tulips. Gardens for food were filled with beans, potatoes, and corn. But edible aesthetic farming challenges this division. It asks, why grow beauty that does nothing but please the eye, when beauty can also nourish the body? Why keep food hidden in fields far from our homes, when it can climb our walls, bloom on our balconies, and decorate our living rooms? The concept transforms gardening into something poetic, where food becomes art and art becomes food. The philosophy is simple but revolutionary. Beauty is not wasted when it feeds you. Food is not boring when it decorates your life. Edible aesthetic farming says that every space, no matter how small, can be a gallery of life. A lemon tree on a balcony is not just a source of citrus, it is a glowing yellow sculpture. A bed of lettuces is not only nutrition, it is a carpet of emeralds. A pot of chili peppers is not only spice, it is a bouquet of fire. This vision transforms how we think about our environment, blending survival with delight. And in a time when cities are concrete jungles, this practice gives people a way to turn gray walls into living canvases. Of course, the benefits are more than poetic. Science shows that people surrounded by greenery experience less stress, better concentration, and even improved immune function. Aromatic plants like basil, mint, and lavender release compounds that calm the nervous system and purify the air. Fruits and vegetables harvested minutes before eating retain more nutrients, taste better, and reduce dependence on supermarkets. By combining edible and ornamental plants, you not only double the value of every square meter but also create an environment that attracts pollinators, enhances biodiversity, and brings ecological balance into the heart of the city. Imagine entire neighborhoods where every balcony, rooftop, and street corner blooms with edible beauty. Cities would no longer just be places of survival, they would become living works of art. But to achieve this, there are secrets. The first secret is color harmony. Ornamental plants are chosen for beauty, but edible plants can be equally vibrant. Peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, rainbow chard, these are natural color palettes waiting to be displayed. The second secret is fragrance. While flowers like roses delight the nose, herbs like basil, mint, and thyme offer scents that are just as enchanting and far more useful in cooking. The third secret is layering. Beautiful gardens always have dimension: low ground cover, mid-height fillers, and tall structures. Edible gardens can mimic this by planting lettuce below, peppers and strawberries in the middle, and grapevines or climbing beans as vertical accents. The fourth secret is lighting. With modern LED grow lights, even indoor gardens can shine like art installations while producing fresh food. The fifth secret is multifunctionality. A sunflower is a bold yellow statement piece, but it also gives edible seeds and attracts pollinators. A pomegranate tree is majestic and symbolic, while its fruit is a superfood. Every plant can carry double duty if chosen wisely. Still, edible aesthetic farming is not just about clever design. It is about storytelling. When a guest visits your home and sees a glowing wall of greenery, you don't just say, "This is my decoration." You say, "This is my living pantry, my pharmacy, my artwork, and my contribution to a sustainable planet." The conversation shifts. Food is no longer hidden in supermarkets, it is part of your life and your identity. That is the magic of edible aesthetics, it transforms the ordinary into extraordinary. But what happens when you compare a traditional ornamental garden with an edible aesthetic garden? The difference is almost shocking. In a traditional garden, you may see roses, lilies, or tulips, beautiful, yes, but passive. They serve only the eye and perhaps the nose. In an edible aesthetic garden, those same spaces are alive with double meaning. Imagine bright marigolds that deter pests while surrounding kale and spinach. Picture fiery red chili peppers standing upright like miniature torches beside blooming lavender. See strawberries cascading over the edges of a pot where ornamental ivy once hung. The result is not less beautiful, it is more. It is a layered, textured, dynamic environment where form and function embrace each other. Why plant beauty that cannot feed you, when you can plant beauty that nourishes both body and soul? Consider a family in Toronto who decided to transform their small front yard. Instead of planting a lawn and a row of decorative shrubs, they designed a mosaic of edible aesthetics. Blueberries, with their delicate blossoms, provided both fruit and seasonal color. Swiss chard, with rainbow stems, became the centerpiece like living stained glass. Herbs filled the borders, releasing fragrance every time the children brushed past them. Visitors stopped to admire what looked like an artistic landscape, only to discover that it was also a weekly grocery basket growing in the soil. This is the genius of edible aesthetics, it hides abundance in plain sight, turning necessity into elegance. Of course, the idea is not just personal, it has global implications. Cities today are struggling with rising food prices, limited space, and environmental stress. By 2050, 2/3 of humanity will live in urban areas, and food supply chains will be under enormous strain. Edible aesthetic farming offers a grassroots solution. If every balcony in London or Stockholm grew edible plants alongside ornamentals, entire neighborhoods could supplement their diets with fresh, local produce. If every rooftop in Sydney or Oslo had an edible garden, cities could reduce their reliance on imports, cut transportation emissions, and provide citizens with cleaner air and better mental health. The collective impact would be enormous, like transforming cities into living supermarkets woven into their very architecture. But to make this vision a reality, people must avoid common mistakes. One mistake is overcrowding, planting too many species without considering harmony. A chaotic garden may produce food but lose its aesthetic appeal. Another mistake is ignoring seasonal variety. Gardens that look the same year-round become dull. Edible aesthetic gardens should change with the seasons, offering a rotating gallery of colors and flavors. A third mistake is neglecting maintenance. Without pruning, training, or cleaning, even the most beautiful edible plants can look messy. The secret is balance, design with the eye of an artist and the mind of a farmer. Technology is making this easier than ever. Smart irrigation systems deliver water precisely, keeping plants lush without overwatering. AI-powered sensors monitor nutrient levels and light conditions, ensuring that both tomatoes and tulips thrive side by side. LED grow lights not only provide the perfect spectrum for photosynthesis but also create stunning visual effects, making an indoor garden glow like a living art installation. With these tools, edible aesthetic farming is not only practical but futuristic. It is the next step in the fusion of technology, art, and ecology. Now imagine walking through a city designed entirely around this philosophy. Streets lined with flowering fruit trees whose blossoms announce spring and whose fruits feed children in the summer. Public parks where ornamental arrangements double as community food gardens, with kale, peppers, and herbs woven into the flower beds. Apartment buildings with edible green walls visible from the street, each balcony a patchwork of beauty and food. Schools where children learn science by tending to gardens that are both vibrant and nourishing, harvesting snacks during recess. Offices with edible lobbies where lavender calms stress and strawberries sweeten the workday. This is not utopia, it is possible today if enough people embrace the vision. The psychological impact is just as powerful as the physical benefits. Humans evolved in landscapes filled with both beauty and nourishment. When we see color, smell fragrance, and taste freshness from the same environment, something ancient awakens in us. Edible aesthetic farming restores that primal connection. It reminds us that food is not just a product to buy, it is an experience to live. When your dinner is also your decoration, meals gain deeper meaning. When your garden is both feast and artwork, life feels richer, fuller, and more connected to nature. The movement is spreading quietly, but it is real. In Norway, designers are creating edible landscapes that replace sterile city planters. In Sweden, architects are integrating edible green roofs into housing projects. In Australia, communities are building food forests in public parks that double as picnic spaces. And in the UK, homeowners are turning tiny front gardens into edible masterpieces admired by neighbors. What started as an experimental idea is becoming a global trend, and those who embrace it early will be the pioneers of a new kind of city life. Edible aesthetic farming is not only about survival, it is about celebration. It celebrates creativity, culture, and community. It is a statement that beauty and practicality are not opposites but partners. It is a reminder that the most sustainable future is not one of sacrifice and scarcity but of abundance that delights the senses. When you taste a strawberry that looks like jewelry, when you smell basil glowing under LED lights, when you admire a sunflower that feeds the birds and your family, you realize that the world does not need to be divided into the useful and the beautiful. It can be both, and it should be both. The future of edible aesthetic farming is not just a dream for individuals, it is a blueprint for entire societies. Imagine if governments embraced this philosophy and redesigned cities around it. Instead of sterile concrete plazas, public squares could be filled with edible art installations. Rows of spinach and rainbow chard could line pathways, punctuated by flowering fruit trees that burst with blossoms in spring and feed communities in summer. Bus stops could be shaded by grapevines and wisteria, producing grapes for passengers and nectar for bees. Highway medians could be transformed into edible forests that beautify the drive while restoring biodiversity. Every overlooked corner of the city could become both gallery and grocery, reducing food deserts and giving citizens a daily connection to nature. This vision might sound ambitious, but small-scale examples already exist. In Berlin, edible landscapes replace traditional flower beds in community parks. In Melbourne, vertical edible walls decorate office towers, giving employees access to fresh herbs for lunch. In London, urban designers experiment with integrating kale and herbs into decorative planters across the city. Each project proves the same truth: beauty and utility do not have to be separate. By uniting them, we gain something richer, a lifestyle that is healthier, more sustainable, and more inspiring. Edible aesthetic farming becomes not only an agricultural solution but a cultural movement, reshaping how people see the spaces around them. Of course, skeptics may ask, isn't this unrealistic? Won't edible gardens look messy or attract pests? The answer lies in design. With careful planning, edible gardens can be as polished as the finest ornamental ones. Using raised beds, clean lines, and thoughtful combinations of plants, the aesthetic remains striking while the harvest remains plentiful. Companion planting reduces pests naturally, marigolds deter insects, basil improves tomato growth, and lavender attracts pollinators. Technology further reduces risks, AI systems detect disease early, irrigation prevents waterlogging, and vertical arrangement saves space. Instead of being a burden, edible aesthetic farming can be easier to maintain than traditional gardens because every plant is chosen with both form and function in mind. There are also cultural dimensions to this idea. For centuries, art and food have been separate worlds. Painters painted fruit, chefs cooked it. But what if the garden itself became the canvas and the meal at the same time? What if the artistry of a space was not only in its colors but in its flavors? This is the poetry of edible aesthetic farming. It blurs the boundaries between culture and agriculture, turning life itself into art. A child growing up in such an environment does not just learn biology, but philosophy, that survival and beauty are not enemies but allies. A community that shares edible landscapes does not only eat together, it celebrates together. This is a cultural revolution disguised as gardening. And then comes the deeper reflection. Humanity faces crises of food insecurity, climate change, and urban alienation. Traditional agriculture, with its vast fields and heavy chemicals, is straining the planet. Cities, with their isolation and concrete, are straining the human spirit. Edible aesthetic farming answers both. It shrinks the footprint of agriculture, reduces transportation, and saves water, while also reconnecting people to beauty, food, and each other. It is not just about calories, it is about culture, community, and connection. It says that the way forward is not a world of scarcity and ugliness, but of abundance and harmony. It is both a survival strategy and a love letter to life itself. So let us return to the vision of you, standing on your balcony or walking through your garden. You see colors glowing, flowers blooming, fruits ripening, and herbs releasing fragrance into the air. You touch leaves that will soon flavor your dinner, admire blossoms that calm your mind, and hear the buzz of bees drawn to the beauty of your space. In that moment, you realize you are not just living in a home, you are living in art, in food, in sustainability. And then you ask yourself the only question that matters: why settle for beauty alone, when you can have beauty that feeds you? This is the promise of edible aesthetic farming. It is a promise of gardens that nourish as they enchant, of cities that sustain as they inspire, of homes that become sanctuaries of both flavor and fragrance. It is a promise of a future where the line between art and survival disappears, replaced by a seamless vision of abundance. The world is ready for it, and you can be part of it right now. All it takes is one plant, one step, one decision to create a space that is more than decoration, more than production. It is transformation. The revolution is not far away. It is here, in your hands, in your balcony, in your seeds. So I leave you with a challenge: if you had the chance to plant just one edible aesthetic plant today, what would it be? Would it be basil to perfume your air and flavor your meals? Strawberries to brighten your mornings with sweetness? Or peppers to set your balcony ablaze with fiery color? Share your answer, because the future of food and beauty begins with your choice. And if you are ready to see more ideas, more visions, and more ways to transform your life and your city, subscribe and join this journey. Together, we can build a future that is not only sustainable, not only beautiful, but both: an edible world where every leaf is art and every color is nourishment. That is the future. That is edible aesthetic farming. And the time to begin is now.